from Pulwama with the very latest where the encounter has ended. The big question, of course, how is Pulwama now going to play out politically in an election year? You heard what Mamata Banerjee has said. Who's politicizing this Pulwama attack? Is it being politicized in an election season? We want to raise the question tonight. Is the Modi government using the Pulwama attack for political benefit? The other big questions today. Politics over terror to hide policy failures. The intelligence lapses that took place, have they, in a sense, been hidden by what has happened in Pulwama? Is the Sangh Parivar using Pulwama attack to fan communal tension, in particular target Kashmiris? And Pulwama attack result of the Modi government's flip-flop on Pakistan. Some of the contentious questions I'm going to raise. I'm going to join now by a very special guest. My first newsmaker here on the countdown this evening is Omar Abdullah, the National Conference Chief and former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. Appreciate your joining us, Omar Abdullah, at this sensitive moment. It's now, 100 hours since that attack took place at Pulwama, in which we lost 42 brave CRPF Jawans. How do you see it now playing out, the manner in which some are accusing this attack of getting politicized? How do you see this playing out in the days ahead?
Rajdeep, honestly, it's very difficult to predict how this one will play out. Obviously, the distress one felt in the immediate aftermath of the attack, that remains. In some ways, that distress has been compounded by the way in which some groups and individuals have sought to capitalize on that feeling of anger that has been born out of this attack by seeking to attack the entire community of Kashmiris as anti-national, terror-supporting people who need to be taught a lesson. So I really don't know how this will play out. I don't know how it will play out in the political arena, and I don't know how it will play out in the military arena as well. Because if you look at how we responded to the attack in Uri with the surgical strikes, is such a response possible in the current environment? Given that it is winter, given that you no longer have terror camps that are operating, you certainly don't have launch pads that are available to you as an easy target to hit in this current climatic season. So what military options are available to you to respond to this attack? Added to the fact that with every passing day, the situation just seems to get compounded more and more.
You know, you mentioned at the very outset you believe that post-Pulwama Kashmiris are being targeted. Are you creating, some would say, a fear psychosis among Kashmiris? Because the government of Uttarakhand has denied reports that people have been driven out of colleges there. The CRPF has denied reports of harassment. I just want to understand, is there a genuine sense you're getting that Kashmiris are actually being targeted, or is this a fear psychosis that's being slowly built up?
Rajdeep, they are being targeted. We've seen evidence of that targeting. Videos don't lie. The images don't lie. They're not morphed. We've seen crowds gathered outside colleges and institutions. We've seen markets being ransacked. And let's not forget, we've seen credible newspapers carrying stories today about how 2 colleges in Dehradun have said that they will no longer give admission to students from Kashmir. So this isn't a figment of our imagination. This is a reality that people are dealing with. Why would students leave and take shelter in mosques or in people's homes? I know of people who found shelter in other people's homes at the moment because they're too worried to go back to their hostels or to their colleges.
On the flip side, there are those, and particularly the ABVP has been saying this, that they have videos of Kashmiri students celebrating on WhatsApp after this incident took place in Pulwama. Who do you think are these groups, let's be clear, boxing in the Kashmiris, or are they basically, in a sense, pointing out towards Kashmiris also who are seen, according to them, to align themselves with anti-national forces.
Well, I haven't seen evidence of Kashmiris feeling empowered. In fact, if anything, they felt disempowered. Now, if there are reports, and I haven't heard, barring one incident, I haven't heard any credible reports about students celebrating the attack or celebrating what happened in Pulwama. But what I have seen are credible reports of organizations like the Bajrang Dal leading a concerted campaign against Kashmiri students in their areas and trying to drive Kashmiris and Kashmiri students, Kashmiri businessmen, Kashmiri traders out. I've seen Facebook posts by travel agents and others that are saying that we should no longer sell Kashmir as a tourism destination. I've seen posts by retired army officers who are saying that if Hindu pilgrims don't go to Amarnath for 3 or 4 years, nothing will happen to their spirituality, but at least let's crush Kashmiris economically. So this, what I'm telling you is stuff that I've seen for myself. This is not the figment of our imagination.
But do you fear, are you telling me that there are parties or groups linked to the ruling establishment? Let's be clear, cut the chase, that there are parties or affiliates of the ruling establishment of the Sangh Parivar who want to use Pulwama to polarize? Do you have evidence of that? Or is this again based on what is being bandied around on social media to politicize?
It's not a fear, it's a reality. Please look at the speech made by the BJP national president in Assam yesterday and tell me, is that not an attempt to politicize the sacrifices of our soldiers? Look at the way in which a central minister in Prime Minister Modi's government was posing in front of a dead CRPF soldier's coffin, or the way in which a BJP MP was standing on the same truck in which a dead CRPF soldier's body was being taken for cremation, and he was busy smiling and waving to the crowd as if he was participating in an election rally. Mm-hmm. So the fact that a political party is going to seek to use this politically is not something we fear. It is a reality that is staring at us.
But, let's be very clear. What about parties like yours? What about National Conference? Are you all also suffering from a credibility crisis? Parties from the valley that are seen to have not done enough, in a sense, to take on these merchants of terror?
No, we face no credibility crisis, Rajdeep. Why should I face a credibility crisis if I know what I'm saying is correct? I face no credibility crisis. Is this a situation of my making? No. Is this a situation of my choosing? No. Am I happy with the situation that is developing? No. So why should I face a credibility crisis? I will continue to call a spade a spade. I will call things the way I see them, and I will hope that better sense will prevail both on the political parties that are trying to use this tragedy for their own ends, but also better sense prevail on those groups and individuals that are trying to ostracize an entire community because of what happened in Pulwama.
But let's look at it then. Let's look at the realistic options that India has today. Do you accept that we need to give a tough response to Pakistan, that enough is enough? To that extent, groups like the Jaish, the links between the Jaish and the Pakistan army need to be exposed, need to be targeted. What are the realistic options that you believe are there on the table?
Rajdeep, our response will not be dictated by the anger that we feel with this event. Our response will be dictated by how we responded after Uri. Not only did we respond, but then we made a public spectacle out of our response. Mm-hmm. We celebrated a movie out of that response. So in effect, we have primed our people to be ready for a response every time something like this happens. So the need for a response is not dictated by the severity of the attack.
Yes.
The need for a response has been dictated by how we handled Uri in the past.
But you agree that the time has come, in a sense, to send that tough response to Pakistan? As I said, parties like the NC, like yourself in the past, have spoken of a dialogue. Do you believe that there is no space now for talks when 42 of your Jawans are killed in this brutal manner?
Rajdeep, clearly this is not a time for dialogue, and I have always maintained the onus to create a climate conducive for a dialogue lies both with New Delhi and Islamabad. You can't clap it with one hand, and therefore in the face of attacks like this, obviously you can't say that no, even now we should be talking to each other. Pakistan bears the responsibility to create a climate conducive for a dialogue, which they have failed to do. Now, what the response should be to this attack, I am neither in a position where I will be asked that, nor am I in a position where I have to decide that. But clearly, a response will have to happen, and it is for the Prime Minister and his advisors to decide what that response should be.
But Omar Abdullah, one response is how we deal with Pakistan. The other crucial one is how do we win the battle for the hearts and minds in Kashmir. Today in the valley, in Pulwama, when this encounter took place, there was again stone pelting. How does one reconcile oneself to a situation? Here are the security forces taking on terrorists, and there are people pelting stones at our army men. I want to understand, can we really then expect to win the hearts and minds of Kashmiris if Kashmiris are going to pelt stones at our army men?
Sadly, I don't see any attempt to reach out in the short term because let's look at the track record of this government. Barring 2 sentences in 2 consecutive 15th August addresses by the Prime Minister, which I felt were conciliatory, which I felt looked as if he was trying to reach out and do something a little differently, we haven't seen any attempt at reconciliation, at an attempt to as you said, reach the hearts and the minds of the people. And quite honestly, in the run-up to the elections, I don't expect one either. There has been no real attempt by senior political leadership of this country to put an end to the way in which the Kashmiri community is being demonized. The community is being pushed to a wall, and unfortunately in the short term, I believe that will continue.
But at the same time, you're saying the community is being pushed to the wall. Many will say Kashmiris are preying on a sense of victimhood. That doesn't justify stone pelting. Shouldn't Kashmiris also try and reach out to New Delhi that they also must expect, New Delhi must expect Srinagar also to reach out to it, the people to reach out to it?
Sadly, Rajdeep, we are the victims. The largest single population group that has suffered on account of the violence in the last 30 years have been Kashmiris. The maximum number of casualties have been Kashmiris, whether it has been amongst the political operatives, whether it has been amongst civilians, whether it has been amongst security forces and police personnel. We are the victims of this violence. Every day we are the victims of this violence, regardless of whose hand the guns are in. So, I don't think we're playing on a sense of victimhood. It's a realization that we are victims.
But there are those who will say that Kashmiris need to do much more to reject the jihadi forces. The radicalization that is taking place of Kashmiri youth, the fact that the young suicide bomber was a local from Pulwama. How much do you think does this pose a fresh threat at this moment, unless the people of Kashmir now reject and isolate these Islamist forces?
Well, I think obviously one hopes and expects that Kashmiris cutting across political ideologies will espouse the cause of violence. I have always maintained that violence is the worst possible way for Kashmiris to achieve any goals that they want to, regardless of what their political bent of mind might be. The sort of radicalization and the use of religious slogans to justify violence doesn't help the Kashmiri cause either, because if we agree for a moment that the problem in Kashmir is a political one, that it requires a political solution, then painting it with a religious brush is the worst thing we can do in terms of achieving political objectives that we may have. So this young man who killed himself and in the course of killing himself blew up 40 CRPF Jawans hasn't done anything to espouse the cause of Kashmiris. In fact, if anything, he's damaged that cause to a great extent.
What role, though, do you see in this election season, with possibly elections even Jammu and Kashmir, the National Conference having? Will you be able to play some kind of a healing touch, or do you believe at the moment parties like yours remain marginal now to the political discourse, given the kind of anger and high emotions that we are seeing across the country at the moment?
Well, we will continue to try and talk sense. We will continue to try and talk back from an extremely difficult situation, and we will continue to play the role that we have done, which is as groups or individuals that believe that dialogue is the way forward, that a climate conducive for dialogue will have to be created, that hearts and the minds of the peoples will have to be reached. But I will also go further and say that, look, there can be no place for justifying violence in Jammu and Kashmir, and no political cause whose ends can be met through the sort of violence that we've seen on February the 14th or today for that matter.
Let me ask you though, there is this atmosphere, as I said, of almost warmongering that we are saying that, we are going to go to war this time with Pakistan, enough is enough. Given this atmosphere, what would your message be if you had, or words of advice to Prime Minister Modi and the centre in this atmosphere of let's go to war?
War can't be decided by television studios. I think if anything, Prime Minister Modi needs to switch off the television, not see what debates are happening around him. The strategic aims of a country can't be decided by talking heads in television studios. And therefore, I think I would be hugely concerned if I felt that Prime Minister Modi's response to Pakistan would be decided by what social media or television channels are saying. India's strategic goals are far greater than what is happening in the social media space or in the media space.
Very strong words there from you. War cannot be decided in a TV studio. Omar Abdullah, appreciate your joining us and giving us your perspective at this critical, sensitive juncture.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you would love to.